So it looks like gaming is about 33% infected with DEI hires. Yes, I know it probably seems like more from the outside. And because this is a video that I'm going to get some flack on, I'm doing it here on my channel rather than over on my gaming channel, That Game Place, where we're going to start doing some live competition here pretty soon. So be sure you subscribe over there. We can't start until we're well over 5,000 subscribers because we got to keep elevating the team, and preferably we wanted to start at 10, but again, you get suppressed when you tell the truth, so here I am doing it on my channel. So if you're not subscribed to Culture Casino, look right down there, double check right now. It's a free subscription, doesn't cost you anything. If you turn on all notifications, you won't miss anything. But this story is big enough that I have to talk about it, and I want to get it out to the most people possible. Now, do I believe that 33% is DEI hires? Well, maybe not. It might be a little less than that, but we definitely know we've been infected with DEI for a long period of time. Woke is definitely going broke, and I don't know how the studios pull out of this, to be fair. Anybody AAA or higher really is kind of laissez faire when it comes to hiring practices, leaving up decision making to HR departments that are completely corrupted with this garbage. There's not a whole lot of integrity when it comes to gaming hires. It's more about equity, which is basically poison and something that every good neo-Marxist is into. When it comes to gaming development itself, it is not merit-based any longer. Far from it, especially if you look at a company like Ubisoft, who's about to release another game, and they're going to do it with as much puffery as they can possibly find. Let's take a look at this story coming to us from, again, a reputable source. This comes from The Gamer. Well, maybe not so reputable, but knowledgeable, noticeable, and disgusting. Let's jump to it. But credit where credit's due. And here's the article. Women and non binary devs now make up 32% of all game developers. That's up from 24% 2 years ago. And it should be rather telling as to what has been happening over the last couple of years and just prior to that. In fact, the minute that the game industry started to go woke, it was the beginning of the end, and we started to get worse and worse gaming products, stuff full of modernity that nobody wants to have as part of the story. So the minute they opened themselves up to narrative consultants, they made it even worse. So as far as story goes, we know it's full of corruption and ideology that no gamer wants to have in their game. It's basically the people that, define themselves as non binary that are kind of outlining what games you're going to receive. I'm not sure that's a healthy way to approach things. Going through the story, though, males still make up 66% of game developers. Well, you couldn't chase us all out now, could you? That's down from 75% in 2020. See, they parcel these numbers out to let you know that 25% were female. They probably couldn't find a non binary person in 2020, maybe a few. And before that, there was really no such thing in gaming, at least not publicly. And almost a quarter of developers identify beyond, well, what would be a societal demographic, the LGBTQ plus. That's a 3% increase from when they don't say. But I will say that's kind of odd considering the populace that exists in society as a percentage. When you think of it that way, there's a ton of over representation in any studio now, at least any of the major studios that reported on this. Racial diversity at studios is improving. Well, that means less white people. Is that more diverse? I don't know. Are there more people in it because they're being hired for that particular thing, the immutable characteristics, or are they being hired because of merit and because they're a good employee? Well, the natural assumption is going to be it was all because of DEI. And that's why people who maybe don't deserve it are going to be hearing DEI hire for a while, at least until we come back to the norms of society. The game development space is undergoing seismic change. No kidding. The GDC, which is fully compromised and corrupted, well, captured, if you prefer that word, finds in their report that 32% of all game developers now identify as something. Okay. They can identify as female or as non binary, which means they're even more there's even more misrepresentation in certain areas and probably less in the actual female category because in the United States now we have two sexes, male and female. Tragically, I guess, males still make up about 66% of all game developers. 24% identify as LGBTQ. That is a huge number when compared to society demographics. Alongside what people will call themselves, whether woman or non binary, the report found that almost a quarter of game developers identified as LGBTQ, which explains some things, to be fair. This represents a 3% year on year increase. So, again, hiring for these specific characteristics and not due to talent or merit. That's a real problem. And if you want to know game studios why we are widely rejecting your products, it's because your focus is in the wrong place. It's in the neo-Marxist behaviors and performative actions and not necessarily in making good stories, telling good stories, or representing what the gamers want. You're representing a lot of other things, but it's not good games. And here are some numbers that I found particularly interesting. According to this game study, whatever this is, this neo-Marxist positioned identitarianism performative analysis by GDC, which you want to call a survey, 59% of developers were white or Caucasian. Okay. Depends on where the studios are located and what the demographics are, but that doesn't seem like that's a problem. Although I bet you the gaming industry folks that are assigned to this type of material and only judge people by their immutables, well, they're going to find this still too disturbing. 10% were Hispanic, Latino, or of Spanish origin. That's a decent chunk. Congratulations. And 3% were Black, African, or Caribbean. Um, well, you can be from the Caribbean and be white, or pretty much any ethnicity, to be fair, as based on pretty much any African can be any amalgams of coloration, which I think you have a real problem there if those are the defining characteristics of what you're looking for and not talent. Again, DEI certainly does seem to represent didn't earn it. And that's a problem because there might be qualified people in the positions at a studio that deserve to be there. But that'll never really be known when you start to look for check boxes. It actually discounts what maybe somebody of a different ethnicity is producing because in most people's minds maybe they didn't deserve to get it. This is the problem with identitarianism. Nobody really knows if you're qualified to be there. Just ask Boeing. So according to the article, they did manage to knock old Whitey right down off the platform by a pretty decent percentage cut, considering that based on this number year over year, respondents were 64% white in the previous survey. Well, good job. You got them down 5 points. Is that correct? Yeah, 5 points. Great gains based on identitarianism, which is incredibly illegal. And if you're a US studio, I'm telling you right now, you might be looking at some fines, if not something more extreme. In fact, a good location for the government to look first, as far as illegal hiring practices, is definitely going to be in the entertainment area, which is all about the performative behaviors that would put you on the right side of the identitarians or globalists or neo Marxists, whichever you prefer. What I find amusing is that even their numbers at the GDC are a little, well, let's say representation inconsistent with a, civilized society. They say that 35% of all respondents were white, male, and not part of the LGBTQ community. Does that tell you something that white straight gamers have been pushed out of the development sphere? Does that seem like something healthy and inclusive and along the lines of demographics? I don't think so. They're saying in this paragraph that this is not enough. It shows that while strides have been made to diversify the industry, there is still a little way to go. Well, yeah, you haven't completely eliminated white straight males, so keep at it, I guess. Again, I think that this is a big problem for the gaming industry, and not only will it bite them in the profits, it might also bite them in the government. And I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't sound like they're messing around with identitarian practices and checkboxing in this current administration. If you want to test that line, I think there's a significant number of fines that can be levied. I'm not sure this is be the path that I would recommend to any business that wanted to be profitable for other reasons, but I think when it gets down to regulation and adhering to an equal hiring practice, you're in big trouble. And look, it's not missed by the industry that this is poor practice and leads to some very bad situations and circumstances, especially when a game studio is all about representation and not about the storytelling in any given game. In fact, here they use an example: Tales of Kinzara Zhao. The director was Abu Bakr Salim, who was big, great pals and part of a situation with Kim Belair of Sweet Baby Inc. And the ultimate result of that game was collapse and disaster and layoffs and a closing of a studio. Abubakar actually delivered a quote unquote heartfelt message following racial abuse he received. There wasn't any racial abuse. None of that occurred, and there isn't anything to quantify it. I will tell you right now that the rejection of the game was driven entirely for another reason, and justifiably so. They also point out that CD Projekt Red attempted to rubbish claims that diversity hires were ruining the studio. Well, it's been shown and proven. And we're going to get a game that's going to be complete garbage in Witcher 4, which they just hired an SBI style employee into their midst and their narrative group. You don't think that story is going to be compromised and or feature things that the gamers want or don't want? I'm betting on don't want. And the gamer, of course, tells a narrative around something that should be rubbished, which is the idea that the people that the gaming studios are hearing from are the vocal minority. Well, take a look at the sales, and I can tell you that's not the case. You're about to see a complete collapse of Ubisoft, if it hasn't already been happening, due to, again, focus on the wrong thing. A unique example of that, well, I guess not so unique anymore, is the recent failure of Dragon Age The Veilguard, which had a complete collapse based on all of this kind of narrative storytelling, the destruction of the art design, and of course, the removal of elements and specific gameplay. Gamers didn't want to have any part of being lectured to about these issues, and that seems to be all the checkbox mafia is capable of. It sold, well, about 85% less than they anticipated on the 10 million units. Instead, it only sold maybe 1.5 million. Now, the question is that real? Is that realistic? Or was that the units delivered to locations where they sat on the shelves? This has always been an argument when it comes to game sales and whether or not the numbers claimed are truly accurate. I will say this: the BioWare slash EA giant took a bath on recent sales reports that, well, made them look incredibly bad. Again, the checkbox will only destroy you. At least that's what it seems. In fact, if you only focus on the diversity, you can never possibly focus on what's important, which is quality storytelling. And set that aside. As far as your employment markers, is this type of pursuit of diversity worth having untalented people on your staff, unqualified people on your staff, underqualified people on your staff, just in pursuit of a performative action? Ultimately, all it does is help bloat each of these organizations with a lot of people that probably shouldn't be in the positions that they are. At least that's the easy argument to be made when that seems to be your primary focus. Last year, I spoke specifically to the fact that studios were going to suffer many, many closures during the course of 2024. How could I know that my prediction would have been wildly inaccurate based on the fact that more studios actually went out of business? This year, I put the number of studios to fail at 12, and I still think that's a low number. We're going to see AAA studios this year fall to the wayside because they focused on the wrong thing, all driven by a pursuit of easy financing through the likes of BlackRock and others. No amount of backstopping in the future is going to help these studios stay in business when they won't be able to produce a profitable game. Eventually, investors will get wise, but I really hope that we can help wisen them up faster. And I hope that the actions of the federal government will wisen them up even faster than that. I also hope that the big entities that are forcing this type of behavior down our throats, the likes of which are run by Larry Fink at BlackRock, need to be held to account for these types of behaviors, investigated and fined into oblivion, perhaps even imprisoned for not operating within their investors' best interest. The lack of fiduciary is widely demonstrated and should be an easy win for anyone who chooses to investigate and prosecute. I think this could be a big 4 years when it comes to game development, and I think it could be a massive win for gamers. On that note, just a quick reminder that my part of the story is done, but yours is just beginning. Take the time to spend a couple of moments to write a quick response in the comments section below. It really does help with video distribution, and it also puts us in a situation to grow. If you hit the like button, if you share this story out there, we can hit our goals of 100K by the end of 2025. And wouldn't that be something? And if you really enjoyed this video, there should be a little super thanks button down there as well. You can help support me in that way, or to become a member of the channel for less than a cup of coffee per month. And there are some benefits there that I think everybody would enjoy. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya for real.